So speaking of the evidence in this case, let's go back and sort of review the evidence that we have at the moment that we know, kind of going in reverse. So yesterday, the Sheriff's Department reported that DNA was found in Nancy Guthrie's home, and they were able to identify that it does not belong to her or anyone close to her, is the way they phrased it. The Sheriff's Department phrased it. That would seem to indicate it does not belong to her or anyone in her family. So that could be a very, very significant piece of information. Prior to that, we have the description of the suspect off of the Nest Cam. Description of the suspect, male, 5'9" to 5'10", average build. From that same video that we got, we also know that there is he's got a backpack, and they have identified the backpack as an Ozark Trail hiker pack. And as I think Morgan Wright was talking about, that could end up being a very crucial piece of information in terms of tracking the suspect down. And of course, none of us will forget the creepy images from that Nest Cam where you had the suspect going out into the front yard, grabbing foliage from the yard and trying to stuff it around the Nest Cam. Of course, because the guy disabled the camera, the last moments that were recorded on that camera were kept and not overwritten. So we were blessedly able to get those images. Of course, from day one, we knew that there was blood outside of the door that we've identified belonged to Nancy Guthrie. That blood is on the front doorstep where this guy's doing his creepy video here. And that blood exists on the outside, but not inside the house. Prior to that, in the middle of the night, the pacemaker gets disconnected from her phone, which is connected by Bluetooth, and so that suggests that maybe when her pacemaker left the Bluetooth range from her phone was when that got disconnected. Also, Morgan Wright made a very good point last night talking about the original ransom notes. There have been 3 ransom notes sent to TMZ. A lot of questions about that, and probably a lot of caution needs to be considered because, of course, we don't know whether or not there's been no proof of life. We don't necessarily know that the ransom notes have been sent by somebody who actually is involved or just trying to take advantage in a very gruesome way. Let's bring in Sheryl McCollum, forensic expert and crime scene investigator. Thank you for joining us this morning, Sheryl. So we've had a lot of developments overnight. What can you tell us, big picture, about those developments overnight?
I like what I'm seeing. The first thing that's very encouraging to me is you're seeing the Sheriff's Department and the FBI working together. You see sheriff deputies holding lights while the FBI is taking photographs. You see them holding up the tarps while the FBI looks inside the trunk. I like what I'm seeing as far as cooperation. The other thing that's important is you're seeing the tactical side. Everybody showed up at this thing. You've got SWAT, you've got deputies, you've got FBI. They're all there. They're clearly serving a warrant. They are looking for that backpack, that clothing, anything that they saw on that video. That's what they want to identify inside that house. And I am real encouraged, and I think business is picking up. I think this is developing quickly.
And Sheryl, you talked about Sheriff Nanos. He talked a little bit about the DNA found in Nancy's home that he believes does not belong to Nancy. Listen here.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe you found the DNA of the perpetrator inside the house? Do you believe that at this point?
What I believe is, what I know is, we found DNA. And
that was not Nancy Guthrie's DNA?
That was not Nancy Guthrie's DNA. So we'll still work with that, and we're working with our lab on that.
And Sheryl, that's certainly a significant development to actually find some DNA not belonging to Nancy inside the home, where we believe, based on the timeline law enforcement given us, was about 41 minutes between 1:47 a.m. and 2:28 a.m. Someone was in that house. Maybe this is a key. And you saw from Charlie's great wall walk there, laying out the pieces of evidence and clues that we have so far to include this DNA. My question to you, because you seem pretty upbeat that we're headed towards a major break. And we just had James Galliano detailing that to get these warrants, you needed a specific direction of what you were trying to get. If indeed that leads to DNA, forensic DNA evidence to add to what was found in the home, is that the big break we're waiting for?
It's going to be massive. In other words, if you can connect something found at Nancy Guthrie's home to this home they just went into, to a single individual, there's your money tree. Those are dots you have now connected conclusively. Nobody's going to deny DNA. We all understand that. So what they're doing, again, you see this precision. You see them walking very slowly through this thing to say, okay, we have a suspect at her front door. We also have Nancy's blood at that front door on the outside. So that means this perpetrator was moving her from the inside to the outside. We have a blood system of evidence that stops at a point. So we know at some point she didn't just quit bleeding because she's on blood thinner. So she's most likely put into a vehicle. If we have any of her DNA in the trunk of that Range Rover, if we have hair, if we have, again, that backpack, they did the right thing by holding up those tarps. And if you watched what they did when they closed the door and the trunk, they put evidence tape on those seals and they dated them and put their signature. That vehicle to them is a crime scene. They did the right thing by loading that up on that flatbed, getting it to another location to process it properly. I'm talking about one hair off somebody's head. So you don't want to try to do anything there at that scene. You want to take it to a location where you have something that you can take step by step by step, process it properly, bag and tag everything.
So you've got some very sharp observations about that search. Why are they holding up the tarp, trying to conceal it from view from the cameras?
Sure. Well, I mean, let's just say the obvious thing. They either have a container or they have a body. They have something that is their main focus. But y'all, we have children and grandchildren watching this from the Guthrie family. You want to respect not just the family, but you want to maintain the integrity of your scene. This isn't for TV. This isn't for everybody yet. They may not know what they have. If they have a container that may contain more evidence, this is all probative. You want this information. You want these items, but you want to maintain, the decorum of what you're doing while you're systematically protecting that family.
Sheryl, you are an experienced crime scene investigator. We love having people with your experience on, not just because you can identify the facts, but because that experience gives you a gut instinct about what may have happened. I know you don't know definitively anything, none of us do, but based on your experience and based on your gut instinct, what do you think is the motivation here?
Well, I don't think it's money because they failed spectacularly. She wasn't ransomed the first day, the second day, the third day they sent it to TMZ. They give them 2 separate deadlines to get the money. Savannah Guthrie says on Saturday, we will pay. Well, her mama isn't released Sunday, and then Monday comes and goes in the second deadline. That leaves, for me, revenge. So I don't know what their motivation would be. It's in their head of whatever they deemed revengeful. But to me, that's what we're left with.
That is fascinating.
Truly.
Cheryl, thank you so much for that insight.
Yes, indeed. Thank you.
Thank y'all.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.